Before the roar of war shook the earth, before blades clashed and empires trembled, there was a child born into a world ruled by survival. This land was unforgiving, shaped by dust, steel, and the constant presence of violence. Power was not inherited here, it was seized, and weakness was punished without mercy. From an early age, the future warrior learned that peace was an illusion. Villages burned, banners changed, and rulers rose and fell like shadows at dusk. Every scar he witnessed, every scream carried by the wind, carved something deep into his mind. War was not a distant concept. It was the language spoken by the world around him. As he grew, discipline replaced innocence. Training was brutal, relentless, and often cruel. Strength alone was never enough. Endurance, strategy, and the willingness to endure pain became the tools that shaped him. Each fall taught him resilience. Each defeat planted the seeds of defiance. The battlefield was still far away, but the warrior was already being forged. Loss arrived early, as it often does in times of chaos. Family, home, and certainty were stripped away, leaving behind only purpose. It was in this silence, after everything familiar was destroyed, that the fire truly ignited. Revenge was no longer just emotion, it became direction. Survival transformed into ambition. This was not yet the rise of a legend. This was the moment before destiny revealed its face. A quiet beginning, soaked in hardship, where a single life prepared to collide with history itself. The world did not know his name yet, but it would. The world beyond his childhood scars was far larger and far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Kingdoms stood on the brink of collapse, their borders stretched thin by ambition and betrayal. Rulers spoke of honor while sharpening blades in secret. War was no longer a distant threat, it was inevitable. Armies began to move like dark tides across the land. Drums echoed through valleys, and banners rose against blood-red skies. Every faction believed destiny favored them, yet none could see the storm they were about to unleash. Ordinary lives were swept into the current of history, becoming casualties long before the first battle was fought. The young warrior found himself pulled into this chaos, not by choice, but by necessity. Survival demanded allegiance, and allegiance demanded violence. Training fields turned into recruitment grounds, and hardened commanders searched for those willing to fight without hesitation. He learned quickly that mercy was rare and hesitation was fatal. Politics and warfare became inseparable. Alliances shifted overnight, and trust dissolved with a single whisper of betrayal. The enemy was not always the one standing across the battlefield. Sometimes it stood beside you, waiting for the right moment to strike. In this world, loyalty was a weapon, and fear was currency. As tensions reached their breaking point, the land itself seemed to hold its breath. The coming war promised no heroes, only survivors. And somewhere within this gathering storm, the warrior's path was being drawn toward fire, blood, and an irreversible fate. When war finally erupted, it did not arrive with honor or warning. It came like fire, fast, consuming, and merciless. The first clash shattered any remaining illusions of glory. Steel met flesh, and the ground drank deeply from the fallen. Screams drowned out commands, and the battlefield became a place where humanity vanished. The warrior faced combat not as a dream, but as a brutal reality. Every strike carried consequence. Every moment demanded a choice between survival and death. Around him, comrades fell, some without names, others with faces he would never forget. Victory tasted hollow when paid for in blood. But the deepest wounds were not always inflicted by the enemy. In the fog of war, betrayal revealed itself. Promises were broken, orders were twisted. Allies turned into threats as ambition consumed reason. Trust, once given, became the most dangerous weakness of all. Loss followed swiftly. A mentor cut down, a brother-in-arms abandoned. The war took more than lives, it stole certainty. Rage replaced fear, and grief hardened into resolve. Something inside the warrior changed, irreversibly. The boy shaped by hardship was gone. In his place stood someone forged by violence and loss. This was the turning point, the moment where survival was no longer enough. From the ashes of betrayal and bloodshed, a darker purpose emerged. The war had claimed him, but it had also created something far more dangerous. War no longer merely surrounded him, It defined him. The warrior moved through battle with a calm born from experience, no longer reacting to chaos, but commanding it. Each confrontation sharpened his instincts. Each victory added weight to his name. Whispers began to spread, carried by survivors and echoed by enemies who had faced him and lived. He fought not just with strength, but with understanding. The battlefield became a language he could read: terrain, timing, fear, and momentum. Where others charged blindly, he calculated. Where morale faltered, he stood unbroken. His presence alone began to shift the outcome of clashes, turning near defeat into hard-won survival. Stories grew larger with every retelling. To allies, he became a symbol of resistance. To enemies, a warning. His armor bore the marks of countless encounters, each dent a reminder of battles endured. Yet behind the legend, the cost was visible. Sleep was rare, silence was heavy. The weight of command pressed deeper than any blade. Leadership was not claimed, it was forced upon him. Lives depended on his decisions, and every order carried the potential for loss. Glory, once imagined, now felt distant and hollow. What remained was responsibility. The realization that his survival was no longer personal, it shaped the fate of those who followed. This was the moment the warrior crossed into legend, not through triumph alone, but through sacrifice. The war had taken much, but in return, it had carved his name into history. The final battle did not arrive with celebration. It came quietly, heavy with inevitability. Both sides knew what was at stake. This was not a clash for territory or pride, but for survival itself. The land bore the scars of every conflict before it, as if history was preparing to witness its own conclusion. When the fighting began, it was relentless. The warrior moved through the chaos with grim purpose, each strike driven not by anger, but by resolve. Around him, the war reached its breaking point. Empires collapsed in moments. Years of ambition ended in silence. Victory, when it came, was sudden and devastating. The enemy fell, but the cost was undeniable. The battlefield was littered with those who would never return: friends, followers, innocents caught between choices they never made. The warrior stood among the aftermath, not as a conqueror, but as a survivor of something that had consumed everything. In the end, his name endured. Songs would be sung, stories would grow with time, but legends often hide the truth. That greatness is born from loss, and glory is inseparable from grief. The rise of the great warrior was not a tale of triumph, it was a reminder of what war demands in return. History would remember the victory, only he would remember the price.